Hello and welcome to Is It Bloody Working? The podcast. I'm JJ and I'm here with Alexia Leachman. My name's JJ Stenhouse and we're both here to help answer the question, is it bloody working? Also to introduce ourselves. I suppose we better do that first, shouldn't we, Alexia?
No, that's probably a good place to start. So we have both just co-founded a company. We've also got a little bit of history between us because we did some previous work. You might have seen our podcast, TikTokophobia, where we came together to work together. And so, but beyond that, there's quite a bit of relevant, I don't know where to go with this, to be honest, but this question for me has been haunting me for over a decade. And I say haunting, that might sound like it's been keeping me up at night. And it kind of has, actually, because I've been working with people. I've been a coach, I've been a healer, I work therapeutically, but my background is business and marketing. So when you've been in business and marketing, you are ruled by spreadsheets. You know, you're always needing to sell more this year than last year. You always need to know if you're going to spend money on doing anything, you need to know if it's going to work. And then afterwards, you do the post-mortem. Did it work? So when I have that ingrained within me, and now I'm over in the coaching world and the therapeutic world and the healing world, naturally, I'm like, well, has it worked? I'm always asking myself, well, is this working? Why are we doing it again? Because is it bloody working? And so this has been following me, this question, throughout all of my work within coaching, within therapeutic work, and within healing. And there's never really been an answer, a satisfactory answer as far as I'm concerned, to that question. Because when I was trained, the one thing that we were told to say is, well, you need to ask for the subject's unit of distress, what is known as the SUD. And basically that means, well, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? And you ask it at the beginning and you ask at the end. And that's basically your metric for seeing if whatever it is that you've done has worked. But also you might say in the next session, well, how are you feeling today? You know, are you feeling better than last week? How are you? Again, we're looking at feelings, and that's like super vague as far as I'm concerned. As a woman that's been beaten by hormones and also has now moved to the south of France where it's sunny, well, I feel great because it's sunny, but also I might not feel great because of my hormones, then how can I trust feelings? You can't rely on them. So this is why I've been hunting for a way to answer the question, when I'm doing coaching, when I'm doing healing, when I'm doing therapeutic work, how do I know if it's bloody working? Right? That's where I'm coming from with this question. How about you, JJ?
Yeah, well, yeah. We've had a similar experience in many respects, but I just remember always hearing this question from executive coaches, right? So they'd say, "Oh yeah, you know, it's all very well, but the problem with trying to sell executive coaching into businesses is they want to know how it's working. They want metrics, they want proof, and we can't give them that as such." And you know, you think, well, yeah, because it's always been subjective. It's always been, as you say, how do you feel when you start and how do you feel when you end? Do you feel better? But that isn't necessarily a measure of what's really gone on under the hood and how you have progressed. So yeah, I have done a lot of work and done a lot of energy work with people, actually, energy healing, and there is a quantifiable change that you can measure because things go away and things heal. But you know, for coaching and therapy work, it's like sometimes, you know, you can feel good 1 minute and then really down again the next. So just saying how do you feel at the end of a session isn't quite cutting it, is it?
No, it's not. And for me, I know that through the work that I was doing, so for those that don't know my story, I've developed a healing modality called head trash clearance. Now, head trash clearance is an energy psychology modality, and so it works with mind and body. And what has been incredible for me to witness is the speed at which people have been changing, because head trash clearance works really fast. Much faster than anything else out there, I think. Or, you know, maybe there's some other handful of other things that work at the same level of speed and efficacy, but there's going to be very few and far between, in my opinion. And that has meant that me as a practitioner, I've been able to witness change happen in front of my eyes, literally from one session to the next. So let me give you an example. There'll be like 1 week where there's a lady called Hannah, And she was brilliant. She's one of my tocophobia clients. So tocophobia is a severe anxiety disorder. And so that's been a huge, lot of my work. I spent a decade working with women with severe anxiety disorders and depression. So I've got a lot of experience in that area. And she, she started off and she's saying, I'm really terrified of birth. The idea of losing control, the whole, there were the whole lot of fears and, fears around the whole pregnancy and birthing process. 2 weeks in, then I'm checking in with her. How are you now feeling about X, Y, Z? All these things that, she wrote on her form when we started working together at the beginning. And she's like, what was that you said? I said, no. I'm reading out her words. I'm going, well, how do you feel about this? And how do you feel like losing control? How do you feel? She went, oh, well, none of those things bother me now. I don't know. They don't even occur to me. And I was like, what do you mean they don't occur to you? She goes, oh, that was just me in the old days. I was like, that was 2 weeks ago. In the old days. Yeah. That's what I say when I mean the speed of change. We had shifted her so significantly that the way that she looked at her life, at what she was facing, at how she would handle it, was significantly different. There was a very big change that happened in that period of time. So, some people might experience that level of change, let's say in therapy, talking therapy, for example, but that change might happen over extended months. So the change might not be so obvious to the practitioner. Just as the grass is growing outside, but you don't notice it growing. You just know that it's growing because one day you're like, oh my God, I need to cut the lawn. Whereas if you're boiling a pot of water, you can see that come to the boil. You quickly run back, oh my God, it's boiling. It happens so fast that you can witness it. That's what I mean by that speed of change, which means that you're noticing the change. And that meant that I had a kind of unique insight into what the aspect of somebody that is changing, that is separate to their personality and the person, because how somebody responds to something, how they believe they're going to show up in a situation, that's a very different part of the puzzle here. We're not talking about their nature or their personality. Does that make sense?
It does. But there are modalities that do bring about very rapid change. You and I have both trained in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and we can see that there have been changes and quick changes through that. But I must admit that one of the things that I used to have a problem with, and now do again, I had a fear of heights, right? And there is a way to deal with that using an NLP programming technique. And a friend of mine did it with me. I was in Canada on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, and there's a big, tall lookout tower there that I did not want to go up because of my fear of heights. And we did this, rapid change programming on me, and it worked. And I went up and I was absolutely fine. Didn't have any problems at all. Asked me to do that today, though, and I would have the same problem. It didn't last somehow. It didn't stick. But listen, yeah. I mean, the thing is, you might say, okay, why is it important to measure outcomes? Why is that so important? And, one of the things that we have to say is that a lot of people are spending a lot of money on personal development, on therapy. And are they really, are they really seeing the change that they want? And, how do they know whether they're getting value for the money that they're spending? Because it's been a lot. It's a lot. Personal development.
Yeah, I think we need to just check the side notes here, or the sidebar, to look at the numbers, because the stats are pretty mind-blowing, actually. The global personal development industry is estimated at anywhere between 40 and 60 billion annually, right?
Right.
But if we dive into that a little bit more, like the wellness industry is estimated to be we've got wellness, which is bigger than that, 4.5 trillion. We've got the mental health market at 400 billion. You've got corporate wellness at 60 billion. Just the coaching industry alone is 20 billion. These are staggering numbers. And yet, how do we know any of it's working? What can we point to say that it's actually working? How do we know that people are really shifting, that the money that they're spending on any of those things is moving the needle for them? But also, what does moving the needle actually mean? What does that mean exactly when we say, has this worked? What are we using to say that it has worked? All of this is what we want to dig into as part of this podcast, because this is a really important question that has just been ignored, and conveniently ignored, because maybe it's been tricky to answer. Maybe it's uncomfortable because, if you know, maybe our thing doesn't actually work, and so we better not look into that, because then we won't have a huge business. So there's lots of forces at play here that we need to kind of confront honestly, because we're facing a situation where mental health is a disaster. We got anxiety rates that are skyrocketing. We got suicide rates among men that are skyrocketing. Whatever is in place is not bloody working, right? So we know it's not, because if it was, the numbers would be going in a much better direction. So it's really important that we get to grips with what it means when something is working, and that we're able to measure this in a meaningful way, so that those that are interested in improving their own sense of personal health, well-being, that they know what they can do to bring about a change. Because at the moment, there's not really anything to help people guide them and say, well, yeah, no, go and do this over here. This is going to work for you. There's a lot of throwing at the wall and hoping it'll stick going on.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what works for what. When should you use X? When should you use Y? And maybe X is good here, but then after you've done a little bit of X, then go on to Y. Like, we don't have a sense of that in a very open, transparent way. That means a lot of people are embarking on a personal development journey, and that might mean self-help, that might mean therapy, but they're doing it blindly, and they're trusting the professionals and the practitioners who themselves maybe don't have all the information either, right?
Yeah, and there's all this. There's a lot of talk about there's no one size fits all. However, the approaches can generally be a bit one size fits all, because we know without being able to drill down and seeing what is going on, what really is working for somebody, what isn't, then you are flying blind. Now, you've got to start somewhere, obviously, in therapy or coaching or whatever modality you're using. You have to find out try and find out what's going on. But often the results don't measure up, really. Somebody might feel a bit better one day, but then the next day they're not. So what we're talking about is saying, let's get to the root of the issue. Let's really measure what's going on, and also track it, so that you know that you're getting you are on the right track, and you are getting somewhere, right? It's like let's get us a roadmap so that we can get to our destination, which is getting over whatever it is that's holding us back in life. So yeah, it's a massive issue worldwide. Yeah. So let's just sort of go back to what we're doing here then. I mean, we're talking about this. We're talking about how we don't know whether it's bloody working or not. So where does that lead us, and why are we here? I mean, what's your purpose in being here?
Well, I want to know if it's working, because I'm the kind of person that if I know it's working, I double down, right? And so for me, and I'm a numbers girl, I'm a spreadsheet queen, I'm always going to try and solve my own life problems through a spreadsheet. And I know that's not the right way to go about things, but that's how I've been, that's where I'm coming from, and that's my background. So I've always been very into that idea of trying to pinpoint this into numbers, because you know where you stand with a number. The feeling just feels like this super vague thing that is just very nebulous, and you can't pin it down. Whereas you know where you stand with the number 7, you know where you stand with the number 20, like you know what that means. We can all agree what that means. Whereas if I say, oh, I'm feeling quite calm today, and you say I'm feeling quite calm, well, your version of calm and my version of calm are probably not the same, right?
No.
So how can we use that as a way of agreeing where we're at? We need to find a common ground that is meaningful for everyone. And so when I started trying to solve this within my work, because of my nerdy obsession with wanting to measure, track, and manage what I was doing, I started to find ways of measuring, tracking, and manage my own work as a practitioner with my head trash clearance clients. And as I've been developing this the way that I've done it over the last 5 years or so. And what I noticed is, as I started behind the scenes, like secretly measuring this stuff with clients, not really telling them that I was doing it. And then I started sharing it with some. And then when I did, those clients got really excited about it and really wanted to know more. And I noticed that as I was sharing it, and they could see that they were growing, they were changing, and it was being reinforced by numbers, that there were some numbers there to back up the feelings that they were having and the changes that they were experiencing and noticing in life. And it enabled them to kind of almost look again at their life experience that they were having and the changes they were experiencing, go, oh, this isn't a blip. This is actually these new feelings I'm having, these new thoughts, these new perspectives I've got. Actually, there's something here. And they were able to kind of cling onto it in a very meaningful way rather than put it down to a Tuesday blip and they're going to go back down again. They could go, oh, actually, I have changed. This is an upward trajectory for me. This is good. And that enabled them to almost use it as a launch pad to continue that growth journey. So the numbers supported them and gave them the information that they needed to double down in the work that we were doing, which then accelerated the results that I started seeing. So it was almost like there was these two forces at play where the minute we put numbers onto the whole thing, they could then use that. It motivated them. They did more. They got better results. It just kind of came together to create something incredible in terms of the results I was seeing with my clients. And I was like, right, I got to find a way of bottling this because this is great. And so that's been the second challenge. How can I take the way that I've been doing this and create something more robust so that it's not just me in my clinical office doing that with my clients, but actually a system that we can use more widely. And that's how we came together with the company that we've co-founded.
Yeah. And for me, it's all about clarity and agency, right? I'm not a numbers girl, you know that. Far from it. And I'm certainly not a spreadsheets girl, very much not so. But I am all about clarity and I'm all about agency. I'm all about getting the right information so that I can take control or, do what needs to be done in my life for me to live my life at its optimal best. So this is all about, saying, is it bloody working? I don't know. Is it? Well, having the numbers there, having something that actually shows me a roadmap, that gives me clarity. And that gives me agency. It means that I can make decisions about how I go forward based on my experience, on what I am doing and not what somebody's telling me I'm, doing or should be feeling or whatever. I am all about feelings, but don't tell me what I should feel. That's, if that makes sense. So, having that roadmap is really important for somebody like me, I think.
Yeah. And I want to touch on the audience, people that I've been working with for a long time in the birth world, these women suffering with tocophobia, which is a severe anxiety disorder. And often they get signposted to therapy. Often it's CBT. And CBT just does not work with tocophobia because it's too close to the surface. Tocophobia is a deep-rooted, often within the body itself, pre-verbal. So there's a huge mismatch there between the solution that's being offered and provided and the need of the person. And what that has led to is that these women feel that, well, this is the evidence says this works. So apparently this does work, but it doesn't work on me. That must mean I'm broken. I'm the one that's the problem. And then they spiral into hopelessness and depression. And it's nothing to do with that. They've come to the wrong conclusion because the problem isn't because it doesn't work on them. It's because there's a huge mismatch in what they've been offered and what they need.
Yeah.
So understanding, it's all very well having evidence and research that have been done in certain settings that demonstrate how a certain modality or technique or whatever works for X, for 10 people, to whatever the research says. But actually, we need to think about marrying up certain approaches to the needs of the individual based on what they're experiencing. And that isn't going on. There isn't.
No, exactly.
We don't have visibility over that right now.
Yeah. And talking about tocophobia, is no secret that I had tocophobia. And this is partly how we came together, really, through tocophobia. And I managed to deal with it and move on from that at a late age in my life. That's not to say that I hadn't been doing a lot of work. I've been trying to work out what the underlying anxiety was that was going on in my life. Could not touch it because none of the therapies that I was using or training in could reach it. It's like you're saying about CBT, doesn't quite reach it. So, it's really useful to know exactly where you are on a scale of personal development and what you need and being able to pinpoint exactly what it is that you do need. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be exploring in future episodes. And, we'll go into a lot more depth on what we're talking about here. And of course, Ladder of Growth, our business, which is up and running now, and helping people get to the point where they do find out whether it's bloody working.
Yeah, because once you know what's working, you can double down on what is working and spend more time, money, effort, resources, whatever that is, doing the thing that is working for you, as opposed to the thing that actually works for lots of other people, but you don't know whether it's working for you. And you can stop doing the things that aren't. Because
and save money. Save
money and time, but also like, I've had women coming to me and they've spent 2 years pursuing a certain treatment route that was never going to work for them, but they spent the money and the time. And for women, especially within the tocophobia journey, where they want kids, that 2 years takes them outside of their window where they think they're not going to be able to have kids anymore. I mean, these are decisions that have significant ramifications. Like, it's really important for people to be able to access the right kind of support for them and their needs. And there isn't this, we need to make that easier for people so that people can ultimately be happier, right? That's what this is all about. Because once you're able to let go of the anxiety, the depression, and whatever it is that's keeping you back and stopping you from living your best life, then don't we want to access that kind of support quicker? Be the happy version of ourselves sooner, rather than postpone that kind of stuff, because we just spend a decade of our life running around in circles trying loads of different things and none of them are working and we don't know why. We think it's us, then we spiral because we think it's us. No, well, why don't we get on the right track in the first place and save everybody a lot of time and make ultimately shift people out of this mental health crisis? Because at the moment there's a lot of people looking for support for anxiety, looking for support for depression. And now we've got ADHD rates that are rising as well. And they're not able to access what they need because there's this one size fits all approach. And that's what we want to put an end to and give people almost like not a bespoke, but give people the chance to have a sense of what's going to work for them based on where they're at. That's really important.
Yeah, we're not making any diagnoses either. Let's just be clear about that. There are no diagnoses here. But what we're saying is that find out where you are, how your system's working, what's going to work for you, or whether you need a diagnosis. Do you need a diagnosis for anything? Let's just find out in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. We're going to, and of course, we've both got personal experience of all of this stuff. And so we'll be talking a lot more about all of that too in the coming weeks. So for now, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we head on to the final bit of our podcast here? Every week we're going to have a little moment where we sit and notice. I think that's one way of explaining it. Anything you want to say before we go into our sit spot?
No, I think that my mind immediately went to the sit spot, which is, the question that I want people to sit with, which is it bloody working? Like, what are you doing in your life that you really want to know that if it's bloody working?
Yeah.
In terms of your own personal growth, like, if you want to be a better person, there are people with like piles of self-development books that they maybe haven't got around to reading, or maybe they are going to therapy, or maybe they are tuning in and doing a 1 hour of meditation every day, or they've just done a silent retreat, or they're journaling. At any one of those practices that they might be doing, how do you know it's working? Like, why are you carrying on doing it? Are you doing it because you hope it's working and you're hoping that at some point the effects are going to kick in? Or are you actually noticing change and that's why you keep doing it? But there's a caveat.
I was going to say, or are you doing it because somebody tells you that it will help you? And
there is that too, but there's one piece here which which we're going to dive into a lot more in another episode.
Yeah.
There are certain practices that people do every day, and they're like, "Oh no, I do that. That really, really helps." And the minute they stop, it stops helping. Like, so it is just a sticking plaster. It is just it's like people who are taking drugs. Yeah, well, I feel great when I'm on the drugs, but the minute I stop taking drugs, I just feel crap again. That's why I'm still on the drugs. Yeah, well, what we want to be able to do is do something that's going to lift you so you don't have to keep taking the drugs, right? So there are many practices or products or solutions in the personal development industry that are behaving a little bit more like drugs than actually the surgery, the stuff that's actually going to fix you, not fix you, but move you forward in the way that you want. And we want to kind of take a look at that stuff and see what that is.
Yeah.
So what's going on for you? What are you doing in your life, and how do you know it's working? When is it?
Right. So we invite you to sit with that for a few minutes and just go inside, just I say clear your mind. I mean, that's almost impossible these days, isn't it? But just notice if thoughts come into your mind, ignore them and sit quietly for a couple of minutes and just ask yourself that question. Do I know that it's bloody working? How do I know that it's bloody working? And if you don't know that it's bloody working, how are you going to find out? So just sit with that for a few minutes, and we'd love to hear actually what comes up.
Yeah. And until that point, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we will. Okay, take care and we'll see you next time.